In a world overrun with an infinite amount of multiverses, originating from a plethora of sources, four longtime friends band together to try to make sense of it all and present it to an audience in an easy-to-digest podcast. This is Geeking Off the Page.
And welcome to a supplemental episode of Geeking Off the Page. Now, I know in the last episode we said we weren't going to talk about Spider-Man. Well, now we're going to talk about Spider-Man. So,
but now we are.
Yeah. So, this is Trevor,
Mike,
and Gavin.
And unfortunately, Troy can't join us right this very second, but he'll probably be joining us in some sort of magical of editing. But yeah, this is going to be a spoiler cast. So if you haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home, pause.
Don't listen.
Go to the theater, watch the film, come back, hit unpause, and you'll be good. We're also going to talk about Hawkeye Episode 6. And mainly we're doing this podcast now because if we try to record on our usual day of Saturday, which is Christmas, you better check the obituaries because there'll be like, some dead people.
It'll be coal in the stocking as well as some other orifices.
Yeah. And
I for one, value my balls.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about
festive, Gavin.
Jingle balls.
So we're going to talk about what should we do? Spider-Man first? Get that one out of the way.
Yeah, let's do Spider-Man first.
All right, we're going to talk about Spider-Man first. So in the event that you can't remember what happened in Spider-Man No Way Home, just, you saw it and you thought, huh, and then brain damage set in. So Spider-Man No Way Home carries on directly after Spider-Man Far From Home, which was the one with Mysterio. So if you haven't seen that one,
even a pause
the podcast right now, watch it. I think it's on Disney. If not, you can get the DVD or the Blu-ray. Just watch it and then come back. Anyways, so this happens right after Spider-Man Far From Home. Now we're No Way Home. So Peter Parker's identity has been revealed to the world. It's not going well. Parker, his girlfriend MJ, his friend Ned, and his Aunt May are all being interrogated by the Department of Damage Control. Woohoo! They finally show up, and so they lawyer up. And who gets to show up as Peter Parker's lawyer? Anyone want to spoil it for them?
Daredevil,
Matt Murdock, and not just Matt Murdock. Charlie Cox from the Netflix Daredevil series, Matt Murdock. And it shows that he's not just some general guy named Matt Murdock. Blind, even has his powers when he catches a brick thrown through a window.
And that's one thing I was so happy to see. You too. Yeah.
Oh.
There are years and years of these Photoshops going around, like ever since Far From Home, where like Spider-Man's obviously going to need a lawyer, and people had always done those Photoshops. It's like, if they don't do this, then everybody should just be fired.
Yeah,
but they did.
They did.
Just giving up on Marvel completely.
So, anyways, from that point, something is mentioned to Peter about if people would just forget that he's Spider-Man, and he decides, what's the best route to do this? Magic. Let's go to the person he knows who's pretty good with magic, Doctor Strange.
Which is funny. I got to cut in here real quick.
Right.
Remember what happened in the comic books when he was trying to convince everybody he wasn't
Mephisto? Yeah.
Well, there was that, but there was also the time where Daredevil put on the Spider-Man suit so he could walk around as Peter Parker, and Daredevil was dressed up as Spider-Man. It's like, your lawyer could have solved this. We didn't.
Yeah, but I think Charlie Cox has a different physique than Peter Parker. So
it's kind still the Stark suit, nanotech, man.
Either way. So, anyways, I mean, yeah, it would have form fit him, but people would have been like, hey, not quite the same size. Anyway, so
we could have finished the movie at 6 minutes in.
Yeah. So Parker convinces Strange to cast the spell, but in casting the spell, they keep trying to edit it and revise it, and the spell goes awry, would be a subtle way of putting it.
Much like when you're editing a Word document with pictures.
Exactly.
When you're trying to
make
make a movie and you keep getting the executive producer notes, same kind of thing.
Yes. So, but the spell kind of works. So Parker, he's holding it back from working because things aren't going right. but it's caused rifts in the multiverse. Yay, multiverse! And so Parker has gone on to, he's trying to chase down an MIT, like, I can't remember what it's called. Basically, it's like the person who decides who gets into school or not. Because all him, MJ, and Ned have all applied to all the schools, all the tech schools, to be together, and they're hoping upon hope that they can get into the same school. Now, unfortunately,
when that doesn't happen, of course, what you have to do is memory wipe the world and cause a rift in the time-space continuum. Obviously,
why not? So, anyways. So while he's on the bridge convincing this MIT person, who attacks but Dr. Octavius. And not just any Dr. Octavius, the one from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2 Doc Ock. Alfred Molina shows up, and Spider-Man's, he's wearing the Iron Spider outfit, so he's got some extra arms.
And that was a satisfying entrance.
It was.
Dr. Octopus shows up. That was so satisfying.
And Dr. Octopus is fighting like I would imagine him to be, using those arms to throw cars and just cause massive. Eventually, Doc Ock gets the upper hand, traps Peter up against a pillar, and is just about to kill him. And then, Peter pulls his face back, and that's when Doc Ock realizes you're not Peter, or at least not the Peter he knows. But he's ripped off a chunk of the nanotech suit, and the arms immediately start adapting the nanotech down them. And Doc Ock even goes, ooh, nanotech. Gives himself an upgrade. And while they're talking, a pumpkin bomb is dropped onto the bridge. Green Goblin's here. From the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire. So that's 2 villains so far. Now, at this point, Peter goes to Strange. Strange, drops Doc Ock into a magical containment cell, upgrades one of his web blasters, and basically says, use this to capture the others. Says, at this point, Strange had just captured the lizard in the sewers, taken some damage, and says, I think this guy's this way, go. Peter goes swinging into the forest, ends up meeting Electro from the Amazing Spider-Man 2, the one with Andrew Garfield, as well as Flint Marko, the Sandman, from the third Tobey Maguire film. Luckily, no Venom. So
Topher Grace was busy.
Yeah, he's real. He's re-editing stuff. He's really good at it. Anyway, Strange makes the comment that all of these villains perished at the hands of Spider-Man. And this is something that the Tom Holland Spider-Man, it doesn't sit well with him. He feels that they have the means to change their fate. So him and Strange kind of disagree. There's this beautiful battle in the mirror dimension between Strange and Spider-Man, where Spider-Man realizes everything's running off of basically a type of fractal geometry and uses it against Strange. Ends up trapping Strange.
Parker smarts.
Yes, exactly. It's not just all agility and web swing, but using his brain, because the guy's quite brilliant. Ends up trapping Strange without his sling ring in the mirror dimension, and then he gives the ring to Ned Leeds, which has some consequences later. Says to the villains, if you let me help you, I can help change your fate. Doc Ock immediately no, because he's still under the influence of the 4 AI tentacles. Everyone, Green Goblin's willing to give him a chance. And then at this point, Peter and May are living with Happy Hogan in his apartment because they can't go back to theirs. And Happy has the fabricator out of the Stark jet that was in the second movie, Far From Home, that allows them, using an arc reactor and whatever materials, can pretty much create anything you can imagine. And so they create a new inhibitor chip for Doc Ock that allows him to, as he calls it, it's quiet in his mind for the first time. He doesn't have these AIs battering his subconscious and telling him to do things. From there, they come up with a device to help Electro. They come up with a formula they start to come up with a formula for the lizard, who's hiding down in a truck. But J. Jonah Jameson got a tip off, so he's there. He shows up. things go to hell rapidly when Goblin shifts between Norman and the Goblin. And we finally get to see just how strong and good of a fighter the Green Goblin truly is. Because we really didn't get to see that in the first movie. This one,
how psycho he is.
Yeah,
Like that's the thing that got me even more than the strength and the fighting skills, the absolute psychosis.
Exactly.
Without the Mickey Mouse mask to cover it.
Yeah. It was an amazing, like, Willem Dafoe can really act his ass off in this film. Like when he does the switch back and forth between Green Goblin and Norman Osborn, it is incredible. You almost believe it's two separate people.
It was like a mask. Like he just put on the mask, the Green Goblin mask, put on the William Dafoe neutral mask. Like
I still wish he had the rubber mask, and I wish they at least they got the costume closer. I loved with like the ripped hoodie, and you got the purple and green. Yeah, and again, William Dafoe's face is like, okay, he's pulling off the Goblin face, just
even without the mask,
like,
he can do it.
Method actor, he's got it.
At this point in the film, when the villains kind of flip a bit because Electro realizes he doesn't like being depowered, and he can sense the power coming from the arc reactor, and that'll help complete his transformation into a full Electro. As we said, Green Goblin goes full Goblin, and the Lizard jumps into the fray. At this point, Lizard and Dr. Ock kind of fight, but most importantly, May gets killed, which is a big moment because she, as Green Goblin escapes, he sets it up and May gets a hit from the glider and she's killed, but not before saying the iconic words, "With great power comes great responsibility," which is a telling point later when we cut right to Ned, who's playing around. He's just gesturing and talking, and he's making sparks. And eventually they're saying they got to find Peter Parker. And where Strange struggled in his film to make a portal, Ned does it like on his third try.
That's one where my kids picked up on that when he was just flipping his fingers around and his sparks stuck him. It's like, whoa, wait a second, what's he doing?
Yeah.
And, so Ned, I didn't actually like this part that much.
You didn't?
But my kids, because they're such Harry Potter fans and all that, it's like, of course he's a wizard. He could be a wizard. And they really loved it. So and
I kind of liken that because Ned is, A, he's a big nerd, but B, he believes.
Yeah.
Like he even mentioned he couldn't believe he was in the Sanctorum for the very first time. So obviously, he's a big fan of Doctor Strange, a big fan of magic in some way. So, and he always talked about his grandmother said she always had the touch or whatever.
Yeah. So at least they set it up.
They set it up. So he makes
the main thing is that my kids loved it. So
yeah. So they're looking for Peter Parker. So he makes a portal, and we see Spider-Man, and he comes running up and steps through the portal, pulls off the hood, and it's Andrew Garfield, the Amazing Spider-Man, which was amazing. And then they're like, no, Peter Parker, and they do it again. And who steps through the portal but Tobey Maguire, looking like a youth pastor, which was a hilarious line.
Oh man.
And they have a bit of a battle between them. And at one point, they tell Garfield to prove that he's Spider-Man, so he wall crawls across the ceiling and removes some cobwebs. And then, Tobey Maguire shows up. And the second they see each other, it's like their spider senses go off, and they immediately do a quick little battle back and forth. And this is when they realize that it's not just villains coming through, but heroes as well, other Peter Parkers, other Spider-Man. Eventually, they all reunite. Try to console.
What a scene when they're all gathered together.
When all three Spider-Men meet for the first time, it was a tough scene. And it was because at this point, the Tom Holland Parker they're consoling him over the loss of May. The other two have not lost their Mays yet, but they've lost their Uncle Bens. And it's almost like the Martha from Batman vs Superman, but it's the amazing,
but actually good.
With great responsibility with great power comes great responsibility. That's how they kind of bond.
I was super impressed with like the emotion Andrew Garfield had. Like the way they when the villains were brought in, like the split second before their death, these Peter Parkers were brought in right then and there at their time,
at that
as they
particular
are.
time in their lives. So, Garfield has already he saved the lizard, but Electro died.
And I love the line where he says, "At some point, I stopped pulling my punches."
Exactly.
Shows
So,
that this one took a little bit of a dark turn.
yeah, that's
Really bitter
Garfield
Peter
is the one
Parker.
that took the darker turn because he lost Gwen. And then you have the Tobey Maguire where he killed Green Goblin by getting out of the way. He lost Doc Ock, who sacrificed himself, and Sandman is still alive, but his friend isn't. Harry Osborn isn't. So it was a nice change up of seeing how they coped with it. So the three decide to work together.
I love the line. I always wanted a brother.
Yeah, and there's the great scene where they're like, MJ comes up to Parker and says, "Here you go," and oh, thanks, I need some refills. And what are those? Oh, these are the cartridge for my web fluids and what's it?
Toby?
No, Maguire. Andrew Garfield says, "Yeah, every once in a while, run low." And Tobey Maguire's like, "Web cartridges? What do you need those for?"
Yeah.
And then shoot some webs. Those that came out of your wrist. Does web come from other parts of you? And they're like, how does that your body make it inside? I don't even want to talk there. And even talk about the whole web block he had in the second movie where he lost faith in himself.
Yeah.
Which was a nice way of calling back to some of the events of the other films, which this movie does really nicely without making it like jumping in your face, like, hey, watch this film because this happened. And so they decide they're going to trap the villains. They come up with basically the antidotes and cures for the various villains they're going to be facing. And they go to the upgraded Statue of Liberty, where instead of her holding her torch, she's holding Captain America's shield.
I still don't understand that. That
I don't
confuses the hell out of me, but okay. It's a good spot for a fight.
We'll go with it. And so they're using Ned as a way of getting things there and stuff like that. And he ends up inadvertently freeing Strange, who's been in the Grand Canyon, he said, for a while. I guess
several hours.
Yes.
Which is basically what he did to Loki.
Yeah. I've been falling for half an hour. So they go through the fight, and at one point, Holland Parker gets Osborn, and he's going to kill him. And but Garfield, Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man stops him, and Osborn stabs Tobey Maguire. That Peter Parker, not fatally, but
I thought they were going to kill him. I would have been so.
I thought
if
for sure.
Did. It's like, you better die. Not, you bastards.
But
he walked away. That's good.
At this point, they
have the spell,
contained spell, but so Goblin had put a goblin bomb in it, so it explodes. The spell is cast. That returns everyone to the respective universes still alive, which is the big telling point. And there's a little bit of thanks for the help sort of thing. See around. Strange is struggling to contain all the tears in the multiverse. And that leads us to the end credits, where we see Venom and Eddie Brock still at this resort, drunk, and the spell rips Eddie and the Venom symbiote back to their respective universe, but leaves a little bit of the symbiote on the.
I called it. That's
so I think this is how the Holland Spider-Man is going to get himself some Venom. And then we go to the end credits. Now, I saw people leaving the theater at this point. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Do you not know about Marvel films and their end credit scenes? And they do a whole thing with Doctor Strange meeting Wanda. And basically, this is the lead up to the Multiverse of Madness.
In fact, it's the trailer that was released today, essentially.
The trailer released today was basically that whole thing with a couple little extra added bits.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the film. Right now, the budget for the film has been released at $200 million. As of earlier this week, it's already made $750 million in theaters. this movie is going to be an unrestrained juggernaut, at least until New Year's.
And the thing that's funny with this is up until now, with all these other, what I would call woke Marvel MCU movies using COVID as an excuse. Oh, well, we didn't get the box office because of this. We didn't get the box office because of that. It's like, no, how about you get a good Spider-Man movie with 3 Spider-Men, a whole bunch of villains. We actually pull it off. Take that.
Mm-hmm. Like
it wrecks the narrative.
It really does. It spoils their whole, well, we're not making the money we could in the theaters because of COVID. Well, obviously, I mean, this movie has been out for a week and they've already 3/4 of the way to $1 billion.
Yeah.
If COVID hadn't been around, would it have made more already?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Oh, I'm
it probably
sure
would have already cracked.
It would have got
$1
a
billion.
couple $100 more off of me if it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
but even under the circumstances, people still want to see this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm going to ask Gav, first reaction to this movie. What was it?
Holy shit. I can't believe they pulled this off. That's I all of the rumors that we were hearing, oh, it's Charlie Cox is going to be in as Daredevil and Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, all of the other villains from all the other Spider-Man movies. Oh, there's how much of this is pure speculation and how much of this is actually real? Because I mean, you had Andrew Garfield denying everything again and again and again, and it's Marvel's narrative basically saying nope, confirm nothing is real until you see it in the theater. But I just came away unbelievably satisfied with how they pulled this off. Everything came together as well as I think that they could have done it. There was not a moment in that film that I think was wasted.
All right, so I kind of have an interesting perspective on all this. To lead up to it, again, we saw this in a drive-in. We got home. My daughter pulled up in the car behind us. My 2 daughters got out of the car, and they came running up to me, eyes wide open, excited. Dad, what did you think of the movie? And I was trying to formulate a way to say it. And then my oldest daughter said, wait, Dad, no. If you're going to say anything bad, just don't say anything. Don't ruin the moment for us. But like overall, I thought it was an amazing movie. It was an ultimate roller coaster movie. It's the kind of thing where you get in front of that screen, you buckle up, you have an amazing ride for 2 hours, and you get off, you go, wow, that was awesome. Although it kind of reminds me of, like in Star Trek, the Elorians, like a Guinan on 10 Forward, looking at the drive-in screen out in space and saying, it's a good movie, but it isn't a Spider-Man movie. Like, it's not right. Something feels wrong. So it's this big, epic Avengers event level movie again for Spider-Man. And it has all this cool stuff, like all this multiverse stuff, all this crazy stuff, all these villains. But it's still not quite the Spider-Man movie I want. Like, that's not what I'm looking for when I go to see a Spider-Man movie. Now, I'm glad they did it. I enjoyed the ride. It was super fun. But the thing that got me is the very last shot of the movie, where there's the sewing machine in an empty apartment. The classic Steve Ditko suit is with the material sitting there. And finally, we see the Spider-Man that I've always wanted in all of these movies. And it got me super pumped for Spider-Man 4. So as far as the rest of the movie, so that was the complex thoughts I was trying to explain to my kids. But the rest of the movie, they pulled off some amazing things. Like the amount of villains that they crammed in, it shouldn't work. It's like, come on, didn't you see what Sony did with the original Spider-Man 3? Like, no, somehow they crammed in that many villains and made it work. Not only did they cram in that many villains, they crammed in 3 Spider-Men, Doctor Strange, all the other extra characters, J. Jonah Jameson, like Damage Control, Daredevil, like, and it worked. The movie flowed. It was okay. I didn't like what they did with Doctor Strange. I thought that was a stupid thing for him to try and mind wipe the entire universe so that Peter Parker can go to MIT. Like, to me, that's just bonkers. I didn't like the fact that he lost the role of Sorcerer Supreme. It's like, so he was gone for 5 years. Like, if Wong could have been Sorcerer Supreme the whole time, they should have gave it to him while he was hanging out in the library. You know, like, it should be Doctor Strange. The whole movie was him getting that title. And so to just casually throw it away, that part I didn't like. And I thought we were going to have more of a payoff for the multiverse. So it it shows that there's rips in the fabric of space-time and the whole multiverse of madness. But I was kind of hoping that there would be a little bit extra leftover that would tie into Doctor Strange. So that's something that I would have liked to see. My son asked me what my favorite moment of the movie was. And, you know, aside from that last classic Spider-Man shot of him swinging through New York, I would have to say it's the three Spider-Men working together. And pretty much the whole family was unanimous on that. Just seeing Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, Tom Holland, just like riffing with each other. That was a delight. And that's something I never would have thought I'd ever see in a Spider-Man movie. So that was really fun. The overall thing people didn't like, and this is across the board in the family, was the fact that everybody forgot Spider-Man or Peter Parker. And, you know, it's the kind of thing we get in comic books where it feels like a little bit of a cop-out, where it's like, oh, no, now all those old back issues don't matter anymore. It's like, okay, you still have the stories, you know, you can still enjoy them, but there is something that's lost with all the character development, and you just wipe it clean. So that part made me feel a little bit empty inside. As far as the Aunt May dying, I didn't like that. Like, I realized that for the dramatic arc, Peter needed to have somebody die, because this version of the MCU Spider-Man, they never talk about Uncle Ben. I just assumed this moment happened already, but they didn't show us because we've already seen it so many times. But to have Aunt May fill that role, like, I don't know, I didn't like it. You know, if you could have killed anybody else, you could have killed MJ, you could have killed Ned, you could have killed Happy, but I think Aunt May needs to be there. So that part kind of bothered me. But, you know, even though I was hoping for more of a Kraven's Last Hunt story, that's the movie I would want to see. Like, everybody knows he's Spider-Man. Kraven shows up and he's like a bounty hunter trying to take him down. All that said, as far as a roller coaster movie, I strapped in, I enjoyed it, and I'm happy I got to experience it.
Trev?
All right. For me, so I saw this with a friend of mine and his son, and an audience full of people who are diehard Spider-Man fans. I mean, people kept losing their shit throughout the movie. Every time a villain showed up or every time a different Spider-Man showed up, people were losing their minds. What I think worked is, as you guys have said, they managed to take 3 Spider-Men, 5 villains, and Strange, and J. Jonah Jameson, and throw them all on the screen at the same time, and it didn't fall apart like it had for Spider-Man 3 or for Justice League or other films like that, where you have an ensemble cast. Everyone felt like they got quality screen time. And it didn't turn into just, hey, here's another person cameo, here's another person cameo, here's another person cameo. It worked. The emotional ride of Tom Holland's character, you know, the shock and disbelief of being outed, the, you know, him like coming to that realization of, you know, what he needs to do, losing May, and not abusing his power to get revenge. And what I think was telling was the other Spider-Mans, their telling of, like Tobey Maguire said, he feels responsible for the death of Ben. He could have stopped the man responsible for killing his Uncle Ben. Garfield, he lost his MJ, and he got redemption in the film by saving an MJ. But he still, when he goes back to his universe, his multiverse, MJ's still gone, and that's still on him.
Well, Gwen Stacy.
Gwen Stacy,
but the equivalent character.
Very equivalent characters. But you can see where each character has their arc and some redemption. Like this time, Peter and Doc Ock, or the Tobey Maguire Peter and Doc Ock, got to reconnect. And it was such a strong and power, and Parker and Goblin got to reconnect, or Osborn. So it was nice seeing those kind of like a little bit of redemption for the other Spider-Men. I agree with you. May didn't need to die. I think they could have, grievously injure her, have her give that whole, with great power comes great responsibility, doesn't succumb to her wounds, but maybe unconscious. That's when the police roll in. What would have been more telling is at the end of the film, after Parker says, cast the spell, he casts a spell, he goes to visit May, and she doesn't know who he is.
Right. That would be so much more haunting.
That not only haunting, but such instead of him, interacting with his friends, but not saying, oh, by the way, I'm Peter Parker, you should know me, doing that scene in the hospital with his Aunt May.
Yeah.
Having to make that decision of, do I go in and try to convince this woman who's struggling to, with these wounds to struggle for life? Do I then try to convince her that I'm her nephew and you've known me all this time? Or do I turn and walk away? And her never knowing that she had a nephew, Peter, that he was Spider-Man and all that sort of stuff. That, I think, would have been a bigger emotional punch to the gut than just killing her off.
I agree with that 100%.
He still could have wanted the revenge on Osborn for almost killing Aunt May, like getting her to that point that,
or
you could still have that. Yeah, you
right?
could still, and he could even think of that point, like up to the point he thinks she's dead because he didn't know. And then, something like at the battle, Ned screaming, no, Peter, stop. She's alive. She's still alive. And then you don't need Toby catching the thing. It's like, nope, can't kill him with his own glider. Something like that. Like the MCU has a habit of killing off people that they shouldn't be killing off. Crossbones, Frank Grillo's character, should not have been killed off. Baron Strucker did not need to be killed off. Just stuff like I said, they just have a habit of killing off the villain unnecessarily. Because then you have to it's an alternate version, or it's a different dimension, or something's happened, and here comes this guy, and you're like Killmonger did not need to die. Yeah. Which is going to make it tough to how they put him into Black Panther 2. Anyways, in my opinion, May didn't need to die. We didn't need her death to motivate Spider-Man to take on Goblin. And as I said, it would have been a bigger mindfuck if she got affected by the spell too. He goes to see her in the hospital and she doesn't know who he is. At first she thinks he's like an orderly or something. Because you could have her under police guard, so he puts on a set of scrubs and goes into the room, and she's like, I've already had my temperature taken, or I've already had my blood pressure taken. And he's realizing she doesn't know who he is. Does he plead his case or does he walk away? So that's one of there's a couple little points like that throughout the film that I didn't like, but overall, I had a great time watching this film. It's easily, I'd say, in my top 6 Marvel films for the MCU. Maybe even top 5. I'll have to do a careful re-scrutiny. I'd probably want to see the film again to really cement down. Because also I was exhausted when I saw this film. I'd had a pretty full day. So when I saw it, it was late at night, as that I had a full day of stuff going on. So also I hadn't eaten since lunch, so I was starving the whole film. So yeah, I need to watch this film again to really place it where, in the 27, 28 films in the MCU so far, where this falls for me. But I know it's within at least the top 6. I had such a good time watching this film. Part of it was the audience, but yeah, there's just little niggling points that keep it out of the top 3. I think at best this might hit number 4, but I don't think it's going to crack my top 3. That being said, I think this movie perfectly sets up the Doctor Strange movie, which is just around the corner, like March. We're like 2.5 months away. So this movie really, really sets up the multiverse of madness. And yeah, it's in some ways, you can call this almost like a Back to the Future 2, where it's kind of transitioning us into the next film. But I think this movie holds enough as a story on its own that it doesn't have that Back to the Future 2 feel.
Well, I think so. I agree with that.
But I think also using Strange and the multiverse as a way of bringing characters in and stuff like that is a great way of setting up Strange's movie, which will be a great way of setting up the Ant-Man movie, the Quantum Mania. So I
May
like
6th, by the way.
What's that?
May 6th.
Yes.
With all of the delays.
So I like the fact that they're using one film to set up the next in a thoughtful way, not just like, hey, the cube suddenly shows up in the next film. So, and they're tying it into the series they're doing on Disney Plus. I kind of like how they're kind of bringing it all together, which this movie really encapsulates that idea of pulling stuff from the Disney Plus shows, as well as giving stuff to Disney Plus shows, as well as pulling stuff from the other movies, including the Sony movies, which I think really is now setting up Spider-Man 4, which we're going to see Spidey in the black symbiote costume. They've got to do that. They really do. As you said, Mike, I really like seeing Spidey in the Ditko costume. In that whole sequence, I was just like, oh, because especially when you see like the little bit of red and the little bit of blue, but you couldn't really see how much of it, and you see him running, and you're like, that is like right out of a Ditko panel.
Oh, and it's full comic book coloring.
No
fancy extra tech. It's
just
whatever he was able to
Spider-Man.
salvage from the old suit. So I'm sure he's probably still going to have the eyes in that.
But, yeah, thank God. I'm not going to have the goggles. So yeah, I was very happy seeing, but I know that's going to be the costume that the symbiote's going to jump on top of and turn into the black suit with the white bands. And I'm looking forward to that. I really am. So yeah, I had a great time at this film. At some point, we'll probably hear Troy's thoughts. Any other final notes before we jump on to the next thing, guys?
One thing that has to be said is Andrew Garfield in this movie. Like, I am so happy for him as an actor to have a redemption moment like this. Because honestly, when all 3 Spider-Men were on screen together, I think he stole the show. And to come off of the horrible Amazing Spider-Man movies, I could not stand those. But just to have a chance for him to step back into the ring and kind of be like, hey guys, this is the kind of Spider-Man I could have been. And it was a delight the whole way through. I was so impressed with his performances. The whole first appearance where MJ's making him stick to the ceiling and Ned's mom wants him to clean up spider webs off the corner. And like, the whole performance was incredible. Like, from that appearance all the way to the end of the movie, all the way to saving MJ from falling off the building or Statue of Liberty. Mm-hmm. It's such a powerful moment, such powerful performances. But yeah, I would really say Andrew Garfield stole the show as far as the Spider-Man battle of the performances.
Now, it's funny. I mean, I've seen Tobey Maguire in a lot of films. So we've seen, he has a great acting range.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Andrew Garfield's been in a fair number of films, but I haven't seen him in a lot of stuff. I saw him like The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, obviously Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. But it wasn't until I saw him in Hacksaw Ridge that it showed how broad his acting range is. Yeah. And I was kind of worried when, I saw him in No Way Home. I was like, oh God, is he going to be in that limited range that he gave himself in the Amazing Spider-Man films? and he didn't. He let himself open up wide.
Yeah.
And like you could tell when he was like emotionally hurting, and when he was talking about, you know, losing Gwen, or when his Uncle Ben died, you could see it in his face and hear it in his voice. And I'm like, this guy is a kick-ass actor. Like,
Even the meta comments.
yeah.
It's like, oh, we're looking for the real Peter Parker. Oh, thanks. Or,
Yeah.
I'm Peter 3.
Yeah,
Right.
or when they're talking about, like, well, I've been to space and fought an alien, and like, oh geez, and I fought aliens, and they're like, man, according to you, next to you guys, I'm nothing. Like, no, you're amazing, which was a nice thing of the Amazing.
I fought a
Spider-Man.
Russian guy in a rhino suit.
Yeah, it's like, no, you're amazing. But yeah, it was just like Garfield really. I think of the three, he was the actor I was most riveted to when they were on screen together, because it was just. He just really let his acting experience guide him, and it was just an amazing performance on his part.
And I think Tobey Maguire didn't have as much to prove because he's the OG, right? So he took more of a subtle approach, like the elder statesman and the big brother of the trio.
It was nice.
And
even the whole like youth pastor, and he just pulls his collar down. You see the Spider-Man outfit there.
Oh, that was great.
It was that, and the organic web shooters, and just the. Yeah, it's like he's been there, done that. He's the oldest of the three. He's gone through everything they've gone through in some form or another. And it was funny when they do the whole backtracking thing, and he's like, "Oh, my back," because when he lost his powers there and he landed on the car, "Oh, my back." It was a nice callback to that. And then crack your back. Oh, I feel so much better. So yeah, there's a lot of little moments like that each actor got onto and really, did well with it. But in my opinion, Garfield was the best of the three.
I thought he was great. And the fact that the actors didn't try and one up each other, they stuck to their own characters. They did their own thing. That way, when you see the three of them on screen together, it's not like they're trying to be the same Peter Parker. It's like, no, like this is my character. This is the way I'm portraying. This
is my Peter. This is my Spider-Man.
And that made it so much fun to watch.
And they even fought differently, which was nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was fun to watch them as Spider-Man fighting the various villains and the way they would fight. It was great to see. And then when they finally, realized they had to coordinate themselves, and then suddenly it was even better.
Yeah. And then the Science Bro sequence where they're trying to figure out all the antidotes for everybody. Like, even that was fun.
It was.
So yeah, great roller coaster of a movie. It definitely has some plot holes and some things that could be better.
Could be.
However, that said, considering what a bonkers movie it was, how enjoyable it was, I mean, I'm glad I saw it.
Me too. All right. Shall we shift gears here, gentlemen?
Let's shift.
All right. So let's, push in the clutch and change some gears here. So today, Wednesday, the 22nd, I believe. Yes, 22nd was the final episode of the 6-episode series of Hawkeye on Disney Plus. So we have talked about this series so far pretty much at length, but this was the
Hawkeye didn't die. Spoilers.
This was the final climactic episode before whatever the next Marvel Disney Plus offering is going to be. And this was the longest episode to date at 1 minute short of an hour. And they crammed a lot in that 59 minutes. And yes, as Michael has just spoiled it for us, Hawkeye didn't die. I'm glad that your prediction came up false, Michael.
I am too.
So does someone else want to give the recap, or who wants to do it? Oh, not everyone stick your hands up. Geez, please. God. So I'll give a recap.
Yeah, you do a recap. You're good at the recaps.
All right.
I'm good at the angry rants and
all right. So the end of episode 5 was finding out that Maya's uncle and Kate's mom's business partner is the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk. So it starts off with Eleanor meets. That's Kate's mom. Meets with a Kingpin and says she's got to break off the partnership. Now, what was interesting is Fisk was dressed like normally we see him, like, with the white jacket, the the shirt, the cane is an affectation as he walks, sort of thing. And she says, all right, I'm done. He says, your husband owed a lot of money before he died. And she's like, I paid that off tenfold. And she's like, now that she killed Armand, which was a huge revelation. The old man at the start of the series. She framed her own fiance, but now that her daughter's involved and there's an Avenger involved, but now that her daughter's here, she wants out. And she gets up and leaves the room. And Vincent's face as it twitched, you could see the anger and he's holding it back, but he's not happy. And as is later alluded in the episode, he will act out in a big way. You don't slight the Kingpin. Now, this is Christmas Eve. This is the big Bishop party. And this is where, Kate confronts her mom and says, I know about Armand. I know about your fiance. I know about the Kingpin. Mom, what the fuck? Which is nice. And then there's a meeting between the Kingpin and Maya, and Kazi's there too. And Maya just says, she realizes that going after her father's killer was wrong, so she's going to need a couple days to kind of put her head on straight, and everything will be fine. She leaves, and instantly the Kingpin's like, she's turned on us. He's read her intentions so clearly as if she had it written on her forehead.
I love how quick he turned. That was great.
He just he knew. And he even did this whole thing, Maya, I love you. And she's like, oh, I love you too. And she leaves, I think as she was leaving the room, because she's deaf, he just turns to Kazi, she turned on us. And that Eleanor's going to be a problem. So he's going to use the bros to kind of solve all the problems all at once, which was nice. It kind of really showed just how smart the Kingpin is. And just, so, it was nice, it was a nice reintroduction of DeForio to people who may have not remembered him from the Daredevil series. Now, at the party, it's Barton in a tux and Kate in a dress, and they have backup, which is all the LARPers as the waitstaff, which was a nice touch.
Especially because they're first responders, they're firemen, cops, and because at first I thought, wait, he's bringing LARPers? It's like, no, these guys are actual law enforcement and first responder unit people, so that makes sense.
They're expecting the tracksuit mafia, and it was while he's being handed a drink. Kazi's in a building across the street, which I think was stupid because he's got a sniper rifle with a laser sight. Anyway, the laser sight's playing off the wine goblet, and he realized what it is. So pushes people out of the way. He uses the tray to deflect the first bullet, and then runs as that guy keeps shooting, as Kazi keeps shooting at the glass.
I did love that bullet deflection. It shows that Hawkeye. It's
being
like
Hawkeye.
If he was baseball, he'd be hitting every single ball. It's not just shooting things. It's like,
and if he was
a bullet can come
pitcher,
and you can.
If it was a pitcher, he'd be throwing strikes every time.
Yeah.
So he gets the LARPers to evacuate the party. And what's funny is, so the swordsman's there. He's out of jail and he's wearing a sword. Okay, these things happen. So it's. How to say this? The fight in the building was great because Yelena showed up, and Kate and Yelena's like, oh, I'm gonna go kill Barton, and Kate's like, I can't allow that. So they end up going in an elevator together, and there's this whole hand-to-hand combat sequence of Kate's trying to hit all the buttons, and Yelena's not letting her, and finally she succeeds when she slaps it. What was that for? It's like, I don't know. And then they hit the buttons. And that's when it's revealed Kate's wearing her new Archer outfit, and Yelena's wearing her Black Widow outfit. And they had this beautiful sequence of running through the building of Kate trying to stop Yelena and Yelena kind of fighting her off. And it was, I had fun with that sequence. Those two play off each other so well. Barton has fired an arrow at Kazi that fills the room he's in with gas.
That was a great moment too, because when he fired the arrow and he missed, like, what in the hell? And then gas. It's like, oh, okay.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah. It would have been nice if he'd like pinned the rifle to the ceiling and then the gas as well. But, you can't have everything. Anyway, so Hawkeye jumps out of the building. The line he's on breaks. and he ends up in the tree with an owl, a little baby owl in the tree. And Kate shoots the guy wires off the tree, and then she shoots an acid arrow into the trunk and chops down the tree. At least she said timber. And down comes Tree and Clint. And now they're on the ice. They're on the skating rink by Rockefeller Center. And there's all the Tracksuit Mafia guys show up.
All of them.
We get to see trick arrow after trick arrow going off, which was so much fun.
It got ridiculous, but I didn't care.
I didn't care either. It was like I was waiting for the boxing glove arrow. I really was, because what else could be pulled out? Maya shows up. She kills Kazi, which was big. And Kate's still looking for her mom. Barton and Yelena start fighting on the ice, and Barton is basically he's not putting up a big fight. He's trying to tell Yelena the truth about Natasha, and Yelena doesn't want to hear it.
I gotta say, that moment made me hate the Yelena character. I was getting kind of pissed off. It's like, this isn't a character I can care about anymore, because it's just too psycho and crazy. And
I think things she didn't want to believe. She wanted someone to blame for her sister's death.
Yeah.
As bad as the Black Widow movie was, she just wanted someone to blame for her sister's death, and Clint was the last one to see her alive, and so she's blaming him. And eventually, he gets through to her, and basically proves that using their family whistle, that he did know Natasha and knew her well. I was surprised he didn't say he named his last son after her, like his last kid was named after Natasha. Nathaniel was named after Natasha. So she decides to walk away. Yelena realizes that Barton's telling the truth, that Natasha did sacrifice herself to save the universe. Clint didn't kill her. So she walks away. I know we're going to see her again soon. I really hope we're going to see her in something very, very soon, because she's too good of an actress, too good of a character to waste. Anyways, we get back to Kate Bishop's mom. She's jumping in the car and realizes that her chauffeur's dead. And the Kingpin's there. He rips the door off the car. They have to use Jaws of Life to do that, and he does it with one hand.
I thought he was going to start knocking some heads off with that door.
Ugh, he could have.
But this isn't Netflix.
But yeah, and Kate shows up, and she fires an arrow at point blank range right into his chest, and he just doesn't faze him. And then she goes to fire like a grappling arrow, and he caught the arrow from that shorter range. The man is not human. That is some reaction time that is like superhuman.
That's right. Like, Kate, what were you thinking doing the grappling arrow? I mean, seriously, come on. You knew
she should have used the Pym arrow on him, which is funny enough. We did see when the bro trucking truck comes up over to going to crush them, and she fires the shrinking arrow, and the tiny little truck squeezes up to a stop. They're like, huh? So what happens now? And that's where the baby owl comes in, because the baby owl took the tiny truck away, solving that problem neatly.
Baby owl needs the snack.
It does. It's like, just got to open up the can to get the goodness inside. Anyways, so Kate and the Kingpin fight, and Kate, I think, finally got an education of when you're fighting someone with super strength, all the arrows in the world aren't going to help. I mean, she finally is able to use the coin trick to set off a bunch of arrows after he had taken all her arrows out of her quiver and snapped them and just dropped them on the floor. And she was able to use the coin trick to kind of set them all off in one big explosion, including the very dangerous arrow. But it wasn't enough to stop him. So Kate has already called the cops. Her mother gets arrested for the murder of Armand. And this whole thing, is this how a hero acts? And I thought for sure Kate was going to respond with something like, this isn't how a daughter reacts, this is how a hero reacts. But I think they handled it pretty well. Kingpin has escaped. By the time the cops go into the store, he's gone. He's limping. Car pulls up. It's Maya. She pulls a gun, sticks it in his face, and the camera pans up, and we hear the sound of a gun going off and a gun flash. which for anyone in the comics realizes she just shot Kingpin in the face. He ends up going blind in the comics, so we're going to see how this kind of pans out. The next day, Christmas morning, Barton pulls up at the Barton family farm, and he's brought Kate and Lucky with him. I was really kind of hoping he brought Yelena with him as well. That would have been a nice touch. And then at the end, Kate and Barton go out to the barn, and they open up a barbecue grill, and they burn the Ronin suit
on the barbecue.
Those
steaks and burgers are going to taste like crap.
They're going to taste like ballistic fabric. And then the best part of the whole episode, in my opinion, get through the credits, and it's one of the musical numbers from Rogers the Musical.
Was that your favorite part?
That was one of my favorite. And that capped it. I mean, I liked the episode. I really did. But capping it, because...
Oh, my family cringed because... Okay.
I've seen enough Broadway plays that sometimes they are just beyond hokey, and they had teased it at the first episode, and I was like, and they'd even released some of the soundtrack on YouTube, and I'm like, they've got to do something with that, and they did, which also means that when they filmed that sequence for Barton, they did the whole goddamn number, which is even that much. My only wish was at the end of that number to cut to the audience, and there's Yelena rolling her eyes so hard you can visibly hear it.
I think it needed a punchline.
They needed Yelena kind of sitting in the audience, just like, oh.
You know what I wanted to see in that one? I wanted to see Old Man Captain America watching it.
That would have been too. Either Old Man Cap or Yelena, maybe even sitting like a seat apart from one another, and just both of them rolling their eyes. That would have been a perfect cap.
I could have seen Yelena just sitting there doing like that Nelson Muntz thing when he's watching what was that, the singer Andy something?
Yeah,
he's sitting there with his eyes shining, going like,
that, or just when she did that ha sort of laugh, just something like that. They finish off just like, I just wanted to see like an eye roll or something. It would have, Old Cap would have been great too, just like the
It's like, this is my legacy.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, it was great that they threw that in there. I really liked that. It was a nice way, because I knew there was going to be an end credit of some point, and they were either going to set up the next Disney Plus series, but I'm glad they didn't, because this gives us a little bit of gap. Mm-hmm. But also, seeing the full number from that, it was great, because they had so much of it in that first episode. I wanted to see that whole sequence. I just want to see how bad Rogers the Musical really was. So we're going to start reverse order. Mike, what was your impression of episode 6, Hawkeye?
Hawkeye survived. Yay! So that was cool. So I'm going to jump around kind of all out of order, since we got the whole thing in chronology already. When they were walking up to the farmhouse right at the end, again, Ultimates Comics, I forget who it was, but the SWAT team that comes in and basically kills Clint's family. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh no, Kingpin sent his men. They're going to be in the house. His family's going to be dead. All my kids start screaming, no! But, fortunately, you got a happy, family reunion. But I think they could have done something like that just to show how menacing Kingpin is, that, he's already dispatched the squad of hitmen and one last fight inside the house. I thought that could have been cool. I wouldn't want any of the family to die, but that would have been a kind of a nail biter ending. What is up with the watch? That was a MacGuffin like crazy. I know it's a Shield watch, but
I can answer that.
Her Shield watch,
right? So she's an agent of Shield, but
she's Agent 17.
Agent 17. Explain who Agent 17 is.
Mockingbird.
So they're just wiping out the Agents of Shield, because Mockingbird's on Agents of Shield.
Yeah,
I know she should be.
It's non-canon.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Agent 13 is Sharon Carter.
Yeah.
Agent 17 is Agent 17 was Miss Marvel.
No, was it? Are you sure?
Yep, I'm just looking it up right now. Carol Danvers. Yeah, she was Agent 17. Agent of AIM who volunteered to test Miss Marvel's costume.
Yeah. So, anyways, I was wondering if that's what they were hinting at, but just because
I
the
don't-
watch
I
beat-
Sorry,
don't
Agent
think-
19.
Yeah, Agent 19 is Barbara Bobby Morse, who is
Okay.
Mockingbird.
Sorry, 19. Sorry, I don't know why I have 17 on the brain.
Yeah, what are you doing?
well, it's these midnight podcasts, Yeah. Sometimes we get things wrong. Names, dates, facts, information. It's all good. That's what we do here.
So then that would be the theory that Laura Barton is actually Mockingbird.
Okay, so if that's the case, that's kind of cool. But again, that kind of messes with the whole Agents of Shield thing. So
Yeah, but
I-
that doesn't exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now. They've just struck it from the record. So
yeah. So, anyways, that was a weird one. What did you guys think about Kingpin with his Hawaiian outfit? Because for me, I was thinking this is his introduction into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he starts off with the Netflix outfit.
Mhm.
I would have liked to see the purple come in and lose the goofy hat. That kind of threw me off, even though it's like the festive Hawaiian kind
Well,
of
when,
Santa
when we
suit.
first see him, he's in the white shirt or white
Yeah.
jacket, black shirt,
which is
was
like
it
the
the-
Netflix outfit, essentially.
Yeah. I think the Hawaiian outfit was because we first see it like that, he's dealing with Maya. So he's trying to be like the friendly uncle.
Yeah.
He's not in the full Kingpin regalia. So I think he's doing the friendly uncle, and it just could have
And it's
been
definitely in a Christmas party scene, so I'm sure that's his festive outfit.
Yeah. So I think it was kind of nice seeing him in the Hawaiian thing as him, maybe he didn't have time to change back into the thing. The hat was kind of ridiculous.
I thought so. And especially because this is the first appearance of him with all these characters. It's like, let's just stick to the canon uniform.
Yeah.
Like, especially because this is the one he ends up fighting Kate Bishop in. So if this was just a throwaway scene in between, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. But because this is what he's wearing in the big fight at the end,
Yeah.
that kind of bothered me. And I did not like how
So,
easily
although
Kate Bishop beat him.
I'm going to say the Hawaiian shirt was in. Hold on. I'm just trying to think. Spider-Man's Family Business.
Okay.
Look up the Family Business, like Kingpin Family Business Spider-Man. It's a Hawaiian shirt he's wearing. And I think that's I think it's the same pattern too. Which was a nice throwback. I remember, it's triggering in my memory. It's taken a while. Yeah, he's wearing like this ridiculous Hawaiian outfit, Hawaiian shirt, but it's from.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's from Family Business, which is I believe is leading up to when Echo shoots him in the face. So it's a nice way of kind of tying those together. I might be wrong, but I think that's the.
Here, we'll share that for the record. So I'm assuming that's it.
That's it. That's 100, and including the hat. Yeah.
Yep.
That's him from Family Business.
And then I like how the quote here, everybody talks about how the MCU should be more comic accurate until Kingpin wears a Hawaiian shirt and a hat. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
All right. So fair enough.
Yeah, it makes sense for that. But also for me, it was just because when you put him in the black shirt or even with the ascot and stuff like that,
Mhm.
he has a certain level of menace. But if he's dealing with Maya, who he's supposed to be the friendly uncle in, that would make sense for him to wear something a little bit more friendly looking.
Yeah.
Even though she's going to shoot him in the face. I can't get over the shot in the face because it's funny.
Yeah, and
So-
I didn't read that stuff in the comics, so I wasn't sure how that worked. I loved Black Widow running out of the building and then Kate Bishop trying to do the same thing and
And
not
failing
quite doing it the
miserably.
same. I did not like Clint in the Christmas tree because that got back to the whole Kate Bishop. It's like, well, I'm going to shoot down the tree to help get you down. It's like, come on, he's an Avenger. He can get out of a damn Christmas tree. That gets into her kind of silliness, but we'll let that part go. Oh, there's something else I want. Oh yeah, and then just the Elena stuff where it was, just that bad attitude of the character. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to kill Clint because of what happened to my sister." And first of all, I didn't even like the whole Black Widow thing with her, with the family and the sister. And again, I don't know if any of that's in the comics or not, but that stuff I just didn't do anything for me. The Black Widows are supposed to be kind of isolated, and the Avengers is supposed to be her family. So this whole thing with the sister, like,
Well, I think in her mind, this was kind of like a twofer. She was being hired to kill Clint Barton, and she was going to kill Clint Barton anyway. So it's, imagine being paid for a job you're going to do for free anyway.
Yeah, and fair enough. But just because that plot point doesn't connect to me, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've already said why I didn't like the Black Widow movie and how they could have fixed it. So
yeah. And then I thought the Kingpin was kind of nerfed in the fight with Kate Bishop at the end. Like, I thought he could have been a lot more savage. This girl, her first superhero gig.
Well, he wasn't gentle. I'll say that he wasn't gentle with her in any way.
Okay, that's one thing that was awesome, because you see that this guy is a powerhouse, and every time he would throw a punch or do something, everybody in the family, they were jumping out of their couch. Like, oh my god!
Like when she went up to do the like the arm bar with the leg lock around, and he just kind of shrugged her off.
That was great.
We were across the room. Like, that was just like, god damn. I mean, she's got to weigh what, 130, 140, and she's got her legs locked around his neck and got his arm in a half Kimura, and he just shrugged her off and threw her across a room. I mean, we already had an idea of his power when he ripped the door off its hinges with one arm, like with one hand. He just, there we go, door's off.
Yeah, but I thought he would have been more powerful and intimidating, just as far as the mob boss. Like, I thought there would be more consequences. I thought, again, he'd be sending out assassin squads.
I kind of wanted that else at the end. I wanted, Clint pulling up, maybe the family, and then you see like a vehicle bouncing its way up the road, and he's realizing, oh crap, this is the hit squad.
Yeah, and then you get one more action sequence, like, just to show it's like you really pissed off the wrong guy.
Even, I mean, they could have even had, Laura show up, not in a Mockingbird costume, but something like showing what she could do, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Anyways, that's my overall view. I thought the ending could have been better, but it's satisfying. I thought the first 3 episodes were the best. It was kind of hit and miss after that. This one, okay, it wrapped up. I think, a few more plot points, make the Kingpin a little bit more intimidating. We could have had a little bit extra at the end, but overall, I thought it was pretty good. Gavin?
I was happy with it. I thought thought showing off Clint's innate abilities was really starting to come into play here. Give him a sort of more of a less of a just a guy who's really good with a bow and arrow, more of a guy who just he hits everything he sees, or he hits what he's aiming for. His little fall into the tree, I was fine with that. I had no problem with that. I did start kind of having sort of a little moment of like, oh, come on, when even more and more and more and more of the tracksuit mafia kept pouring out. It's like, it was like right out of Kung Fu Hustle, with like the number of like bad guys that kept showing up at every car that showed up. Sure. Oh, there's more of them.
But I actually didn't mind that, but I was counting the arrows.
But I am very happy to see that they were really leaning into the trick arrows, because that was one of the things that it was kind of implied with the Avengers movies. So like he had an arrow that could do like he could hack a computer. He had an arrow that could like had a time delay bomb in it, but he didn't really play with the options. I mean, my only disappointment out of that was he did not have a boxing glove arrow.
And it was fun that we got to see him build the arrows. That was cool.
That was great. I loved when Widow and Kate were fighting, and she's like, "Oh, good hit. Oh, that was a really good throw." it's just they were complimenting each other, and I'm like, oh come on, we need to see these two together actually on the same side. It'd be perfect. All in all, I thought it was very enjoyable, and that fight with the Kingpin, I felt it finally made the Kingpin look more like the larger than life villain he is. You with Daredevil, he was terrifying as the criminal mastermind behind like everything. He was just vicious. He was nasty. He was vindictive. But underneath it all, he was still just a regular man in the Netflix stuff. Here, I mean, rips off a car door. Oh shit. And then just his stature, his build, it just felt more on par with what the comics kind of portrayed him as. Like I seem to recall something where he was pretty much had so much muscle under his bulk that he people would try to stab him, and they could barely get through the muscle. So I mean, Kate Bishop's arrows were probably not that much of a threat to him, and just the fact that he's like one-handed strong arming her around the shop there. I think it's really not. He's I think he was even holding back a bit. I don't think he's quite superhuman, but I think it's like kind of like The Rock fighting like Revenge of the Nerds at this point. So all in all, I was pleased with where it's going. I love the fact that he acknowledged Kate as his partner, and that that one little line where like right at the end when they're sitting on the back of the ambulance is, there comes a time when like someone comes into your life that just makes such a difference, or whatever it was he was saying, and and then he throws her off with talking about the who's he talking about, the one of the cosplayers.
Oh yeah,
anyway,
making the outfits. That's right.
Yeah, making the outfits, right? So it was the real acknowledgement that this Kate Bishop is someone important in his life, and helps him focus better, or fight better, or just they were about as simpatico fighting as the Black Widow and Hawkeye were. That back to back. He would take his eyes and attack a target like behind Kate. Kate would shoot a target coming up behind Clint, and they were like perfectly synchronized. So I think they can only go from there, and
there was a telling line in this at the early part of this episode when he called her his partner.
Yeah,
which was nice because one of the early episodes, he's like, "You're not my partner," and so now he's acknowledging her. Yeah, I like this episode. I think if I had to rank Hawkeye as an entire series, it's definitely better than Falcon the Winter Soldier.
Oh, way better. There's actually something enjoyable in this.
Yes. So I like the series overall. There was a weak episode or two, or there was some weak points here and there. There was also a lot of strong points. I like the fact that we got to see Clint being Hawkeye without Captain America and Iron Man and Thor and Hulk and everyone else overshadowing him.
Right.
We finally got to see him
see what he can do when the space gods and the Iron Men and everyone else isn't around.
Exactly. So it was really nice to see, how a fully trained SHIELD agent / assassin coming into when they're doing their thing, just how good they are. Why Hawkeye? Yes, yeah, and why Hawkeye had been assigned to watch, the Tesseract back in the Avengers film, and not just we got Agent Joe Schmo doing it. So it's finally good to see him do his thing. Now, as a quick little side thing, so the upcoming series on Disney Plus, just for this next year, we've got Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Secret Invasion, Miss Marvel, and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. That's all coming this upcoming year. So that's 4 series in a special. I have good hopes for that. I mean, that's
What are you looking forward to the most out of that list? Not including the holiday special, because that's an easy one to say.
I was going to say bastard. I think it's a toss-up for me. I mean, I really, really enjoy the Moon Knight comics, so I have a lot of hope for that one. I love the She-Hulk comics because they constantly broke the fourth wall. There was so much humor in those books. Of the four, I think I'm least excited for Miss Marvel, but I'm hoping it sets up nicely. Secret Invasion could go either way. I foresee in that one they're gonna have to have a lot of cameos, and I don't know if they're gonna be able to pull them all off.
Do we know what characters are supposed to be in that one? Like, is there any?
Right now it's in
just a bunch of
filming.
squirrels?
Right now, Secret Invasion is currently filming, so they haven't. The only people they've said as the cast is we have Samuel L. Jackson, we have Ben Mendelsohn, and we have Colby Smulders. That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
They have not. Let's see. I'm just looking through. Additionally, they have Kingsley Ben-Adir has been cast as lead villain. Amelia Clark, Killian Scott, Christopher McDonald, and Carmen Ejongo as undisclosed roles.
Yeah, so it's probably a bunch of scrolls.
Yeah, a bunch of scrolls, and they haven't announced who, but it's So it'll be interesting to see who they do. I think we're going to see She-Hulk before that, and before that we're going to see Moon Knight, which I believe Moon Knight's supposed to. I mean, they're in post-production with both of those shows, Moon Knight and She-Hulk, and Miss Marvel's actually in post-production as well. So the one they're filming right now is Secret Invasion, and the holiday special is what they're currently listed as status is filming. So
Gavin, out of that list, which one are you most excited about?
Probably She-Hulk.
Yeah.
It's one of the characters that I'd been really wanting to see, like, in the MCU for a very long time. It's always been a very well, the majority of the Marvel movies have been very, very male lead oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And that even before Captain Marvel was announced as an upcoming movie, I'd been saying, where's She-Hulk? Why can't we see She-Hulk? She is like, she's the perfect
big green babe. Oh,
well,
that's what I thought you were going to
it's
say.
a blend of comedy and action.
Yeah, comedy and action.
Like her comics were always so much fun to read.
Yeah. So for me, I would have said She-Hulk as well, but I'm afraid they won't land the tone. Like, that's the one I would like to see done really well. But I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully they can pull it off. But because I don't think they'll be able to land it,
there's one thing that's kind of got me on sort of on the leading on to the I think they're going to pull it off fence.
What's
and
that?
It's that one shot where they're standing there looking like Bill Bixby. I think that's going to sort of cement the tone, because it's very clearly going to be a fourth wall kind of thing. Plus,
for me, my hope for this is the head writer. Jennifer Gao is the head writer. She's done Rick and Morty. She did like Kung Fu Panda: The Legend of Awesomeness, which my kids really enjoyed. So she's done an episode of Silicon Valley. So she can write some comedy. So I'm hoping, I'm really hoping that, and I think she was the executive producer on She-Hulk as well. So with her as the head writer, I think she's going to be able to put enough of the comedy aspect in. Because for me, I've always believed action is easy to write, comedy is hard. To get something that's going to be universally people get them to laugh at something without it being like a groaning sort of situation. So
yeah, that's something that Marvel, I guess the closest is Guardians, but they keep saying that every movie is supposed to have its own genre. We don't really have a comedy. Again, Guardians is the closest, but if they could do that with She-Hulk, or that's like the Seinfeld of the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
exactly,
that'd be amazing.
If they can pull that off, it'll be awesome. Moon Knight's going to be all moody and angsty. So, but that's the character.
If he doesn't say throw some random shit attack, or a random bullshit attack or something like that.
Well, I mean, you get the character Mark Spector is a guy who has like some psychological issues to begin with, so it's going to be dark and angsty. Yeah, so that's what's coming up for 2022. So I'm looking forward to all those. Yeah, so I think this was a great way of ending off the year with Hawkeye. I mean,
has he stayed alive?
Well, I guess he did. I mean, next up for Disney Plus is Book of Boba Fett. That's just around the corner, like 2 weeks from now. So, yeah. So that kind of ends up what we were meant to talk about for this this podcast. Unless there's anything else we want to bring up.
Random bullshit. Go.
There we go. Yeah.
All right. We just need to make sure that panel is in the show, and then it's golden.
Awesome. So, other than anything that Troy's going to add to the edit, we got anything else to say?
Nothing except our collective goodbye.
I think we should say Merry Christmas instead.
Merry Christmas instead.
There we go. In 3, 2, 1. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas instead.
There we go. And that has wrapped up a supplemental episode. I don't even want to call it a full episode because without all four of us, it doesn't really work.
Who knows what Troy does in the editing bay?
I don't know. So this would be episode what? 197, 4.
I don't know.
18. I don't know. But
whatever he punches in on the keyboard.
Sure.
Either way, you got another episode, and you'll get another one soon.
Just roll some dice. Yeah, we'll go from there.
All right.
So who wants to stop the recording?
Well, I will because I'm the host.
You have just been listening to Geeking Off the Page with your hosts, Mike Kitchen, Gavin Burbage, Trevor Brown, and Troy Bowman. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Also, if you could leave us a rating and comment, that would assist in allowing others to find this podcast more easily. You can follow the podcast on the following social platforms. Instagram and Twitter, search for @PlanetGeekPod, all one word. On Facebook, search for Planet Geek Productions. Or you can send us an email to planetgeekpod@gmail.com. Buy the guys a coffee by going to Ko-Fi, ko-fi.com/PlanetGeekPod. And know that any and all donations will go towards improving all current and future Planet Geek Productions programs. Thank you for listening.